Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back. Thank you for joining us for Host Week for this afternoon of EduSpots. So if you've been tuned in all day, I haven't really taken a break. And then Mary said, oh, you should probably go take a break and eat. So we had a little bit of a break between things. So I ran downstairs, grabbed something to eat. And then my partner told me, he's like, Mary sent you something. And Mary is our editor, who's fabulous. And then my favorite flower, tulips. And it says, good luck for Host Week. And this is also because on our next session, Mary and I are talking about the new course we're launching at Host Agency Reviews. So today's a big day. It's Host Week and it's course launch day. And now we have beautiful tulips to celebrate it with. So thank you, Mary. That was very sweet of you and very sneaky of you. Well, let's see. So we've got a week full of fun for everybody out there. And I'm so excited. If you didn't tune in earlier, we do host interviews, we do consortia interviews, we have our keynotes, and then we of course have those exclusive Host Week specials, which if you haven't checked them out, we're going to put a link in the comments. There's, I think, over 60 at this point in time, and they're all across the board with host agencies, suppliers, associations. So there's something for everybody, whether or not you're hosted. Now, I've been chatting with myself for hours now against the screen. And so let's get a little bit of crowd interaction. So go ahead and let me know in the comments if there's some EduSpots that you're particularly looking forward to later in the week, because obviously you're interested in the upcoming one, Larry's, and Larry's is going to be amazing. So good choice tuning in on this one. But would love to hear what people are looking forward to in terms of EduSpots, because it's a really stellar group of presenters all this week. And again, we were able to make this all free through our sponsors. So a big thank you to our weekly and our daily sponsors, everyone that pitched in throughout the week to help out. But let me, yeah, it was very sweet of Mary. And cool, we've got one attracting clients on LinkedIn. So that is going to be with Rita, who has also helped us with producing Host Week, and she will be on shortly too. So without further ado, I want to go ahead and do a little intro here for Lary. So let me, here we go. So Lary Neron is the founder and lead geek at Airfare Consultant, 100% airfares. He's highly personalized white glove concierge services, professional fees driven company serving some of North America's most innovative entrepreneurs. He's also a nomad. And if you didn't, I met Larry years ago. He listened to the podcast and sent a note in, and then we ended up interviewing because he's got a very interesting take that he only does airfare, because a lot of times you hear don't do airfare. But Larry proves that you can do airfare even if you don't have the GDS or the global distribution system. So I am very excited to hear what he has to say. So without further ado, I am going to pass it over to you, Larry.
All right, thanks, Stephanie. Glad to be here today. So hopefully everybody can see my screen. So this is a topic that's been very close to my heart, as Stephanie alluded to. I mean, we at Airfare Consultant focus solely on airfares, and it's something I've heard time and time again through Facebook groups and chats about agents fearing dealing with air and feeling that they don't have access to GDS, they don't have the necessary skills to do so. So this presentation is going to be about, like the title say, like how do we elevate the client experience and how could we find a way to monetize that in the process? And all this without any GDS skills at all. And so I'm going to skip fast over this one because I got some good stuff on the other slides. I mean, just a little bit about me. I mean, I worked in pricing and revenue management in an airline in Canada called WestJet for about 6.5 years, which is where I got a lot of that inside knowledge. I did also work as a retail travel agent at Flight Centre in Canada for about 10 months. I've been an independent hosted consultant since 2016. I also, 2014, and I started on airfare only in 2016. I started doing everything for everyone, just like many of us have done. And I decided that's all I wanted to, selfishly, just what I wanted to focus on, because that's what I really enjoy doing. And then got my first retainer client in 2016 as well. And it's been really good ever since. Some information about what we've done last year. I mean, just to give you a perspective, I mean, most of our revenue comes from fees. We do have commission because we do a lot of business class, but we treat that as gravy pretty much. We're not gonna take it, but that certainly doesn't drive our decision-making process. We've handled some flights in the country. So let's just dive into it. So I just want to preface all this by saying that if you convinced you hated air and you don't want to do it, I'm not here to convince you should do it. I'm here for the people that have an interest in doing it, people that are already doing it, and just want to get better at it, just want to be less stressed about it, just want to learn a little more about what they can do to make it easier on them, make it easier on their client, and in the meantime, monetizing it at the same time. You don't need any GDS access for anything I'm talking about today. You certainly don't need any special skills with airfare in particular. Most of that stuff is stuff you already know. You either do it for yourself when you travel, or you know the information and perhaps you may not think that it's valuable for a client to hear. And then you certainly don't need to make the booking either. Making a booking, if you had access to GDS or if you do the booking on behalf of your clients, that comes with a huge responsibility, which I feel is often what triggers a lot of the insecurities from an advisor, is that they feel like they're in control of too much for the client. So you don't need to do any of that if you don't want to, but you will need to do a little bit of work and make sure you have a little bit of bandwidth in for yourself and for your team in order to achieve that. And I'm going to talk in like the very basic, like I break them down in level 1, like the very basic you could do in terms of service. And if you wanted to go a little deeper and do a little more and serve a little more, then, what would that look like? So first, create a home-to-home experience. One thing that puzzles me a lot is, I only do air. So, I'm only responsible for the bookends of most people's travel. But I always, wonder why like somebody would put so much effort in curating the best experience and whatever niche that you're in, being a river cruise or a safari or something, and curate it down to the minute and the transfer and the experience you want the clients to have, but then leaving those bookends to either the client or the airline being worse. And to me, it always made sense that you would integrate the two, so the air and the experience you're trying to deliver, so that for the client, you can create a home-to-home experience. And that way, it also allows you to keep your finger on the pulse of how your traveler, your client, gets to their house, to your event or your experience that you've created, and be in the know. If something happened during the air process, then right? You know what state of mind they're going to be in when they arrive at the hotel, when they arrive at the cruise ship. And perhaps it may make communication a little easier, as you know what they've been through, if they're stressed, if they're not stressed, and if they complain about something that they may not be complaining about normally, that it may have something to do with something else than what you did or didn't do. So that, to me, like, that'd be a crucial part, is to integrate the air into the experience as well. Because at the end of the day, it is an experience. And that's all we do here at Airfare Consultant, is we make air an experience. And that everything we're going to be talking about is all the things we do and more. So some of the things that you could do as an advisor, as a level 1, is you can guide the client, right? And the next slide will have a whole bunch of examples of what you can actually do, like to implement. You can guide the client with the air, and when we say just help them make the air booking or the air decision, and help them into what to look for, what not to book, what to focus on, and just try to narrow their energy to something that will work very well for them. And then if you want to push it a little further, then you've done the guiding, and you can offer a little bit of support while they travel, and you could do it as minimally as you want, or as much as as you wanted to do it. And in the end, the key benefit, obviously, for you as an advisor, is you keep control over the experience for the client from home to home. And I would think that would be something that would be super important. And then for the client, kind of a no-brainer. It just provides them a seamless experience from home to home. Because why or not, that's where their experience starts. Even though your bit may start later on in the journey, that's where their experience starts. And if you find a way to offer any kind of service for that first part and the end part, then it will pay dividends tremendously. So level 1 and 2, so if we do guide, so what that would look like is you'd offer advice on airfares. And honestly, if you have a client that goes from Seattle to Orlando, they're going to Disney, for example, and they've got a flight, and you package this whole Disney, this beautiful experience at the other end. That when they look at airfare, and most of that information is information you already know. You don't need to look for it. You don't need to study it. Like, most of that stuff you already know from the experience that you've already had. they're most likely that perhaps they're going to see, an Allegiant flight and a Delta flight. Well, perhaps you can highlight the difference in between. Why would you book a Delta flight over an Allegiant flight, right? They only fly 3 times a week. If the flight gets canceled, you're 4 days in Orlando. Well, guess what? You may miss a whole day of your experience. While you fly Delta, they fly pretty much every few hours, and then we can get you to your destination with very minimal interruption. If you know they're going to see a connection in Denver versus Houston, then if it's winter, you know what happened in Denver and Houston normally, probably not the best place to connect if you can avoid it. So you'd highlight that you'd be better off to perhaps take a Houston connection. So you're just planting all these seeds in their head, right? Sharing some information. So when they get to see all the abundance of information, they will be able to self-select the best stuff for them. And you already given them the confidence to be able to pick the right product and the right flight. It could be, if they see a 50-minute layover, everybody wants to jump on those because nobody wants a long layover. But, you can highlight that, that perhaps they should take a 2-hour layover, and maybe they show up. It's a bit of a longer layover, but at least they've got some buffer to accumulate a delay leaving Seattle should there be fog or something, and it won't interrupt the rest of their day. So you're building a buffer through the layover so that their journey is as seamless and stress-free as possible. You can just tell them, listen, if you're looking, you're going to see some basic fares. Those fares are non-changeable. They're throwaway. If you change your mind, you lose your money. So these, again, are all the things that you probably already know on the top of your head that perhaps you think it's common knowledge, but I can assure you, most of the stuff I talk about, it is common knowledge in between all of us. It certainly isn't for most of my clients and most of you as well. And then, if you want to push it even further, you could say, do the work, send me the itinerary. I'll have a look at it. I'll tell you, what I think about it, what I think you should focus on. Maybe you should look at something different. So that'd be the guiding part of, just looking for the airfare, to make sure you set them up right from the get-go so that, again, you have a little bit of influence, a little bit of control over the rest of their journey. And the support, if you want to layer another thing on top of that, then once they do the booking, you can do the online check-in for them. It's a great thing. It takes literally, you can do it on an airline app. It takes no time. It has tremendous value. You send the boarding pass directly to the client. If you know they're going to be checking a bag, you can prepay for it online. You're saving them time at the airport. If the airline has offered an upgrade, you can offer it to them. This is all public information. Like, there's no secret here. And that's the key, is it doesn't need to be a secret in order to be valuable or in order to be able to monetize it. You can track the flights for them if you want to, or sign them up for flight tracking, just so they know. Encourage them to put their flight on the app so that they can also get the information for their flight. The more they know, again, the pressure, the stress kind of drops, and you're trying to get them as relaxed as possible. So when they get to your experience, then they're going to be able to enjoy what you've laid out for them. You can provide them backup options, again, peace of mind. You do the original research, or you just have a look. If you connect to Houston, on the 5 o'clock, and you can have a quick look, and there's a 7 and a 10 o'clock, then you can easily tell them, listen, if you miss your flight, there's 2 more flights that still get you to Orlando the day of travel. Put those in your bag if you ever need them. Ask for those. You can send them a pre-check email. Again, that could be a very easy template to let them know things they should focus on before they check in or before they get to the airport. So again, it seems like it's a no-brainer thing for most of us, but trust me, when a traveler is just getting off work and they're getting into planning, the last thing they do is think about a lot of these things. And when you do it for them, it's either they already know, and if they already know, in their mind, they're like, so he's got my back, or she's got my back, right? Because she also knows, because she's telling me as well. So it serves both purpose, regardless if the client knows about what's coming and if they have access to alerts or anything, or if they don't. So, oops, I'm gonna go the other way. So that's the first part. So the second part is, obviously we want to elevate the client experience. We're going to monetize the service and try to get them to pay for something. Then we got to give them an experience. And that starts with upgrading their relationship with air travel. And today what we're doing is hopefully trying to upgrade your relationship as an advisor with air travel as well, so that you can pass that on to your client, so that everybody knows and everybody takes for granted that the investment in travel is not just the cruise or the safari or the FIT in Italy. It's the whole thing. Because let's face it, most of us see, we spend a lot of money, get super excited, we're going to Italy for 10 days, and then you get that, oh, now I got to book the airfare, right? And that's just a cost, and it's just money, and it seems like it's an out-of-pocket expense for, literally nothing, just the right to get there. It doesn't have to be that. It could be a whole lot more than that. So one of the things that you could do is, again, as part of guiding, you can educate the client. You can arm them with information about flying, and you wouldn't believe what that does to their mental, especially if you've got people that traveling as families, and there's a lot of other things they have to think about on day of travel, and just knowing that, you know, you may have told them about things that they didn't expect, you know, like you've sent them a list of amenities beforehand, and you says, listen, you're traveling with the little ones. You know what? This plane has feedback TVs. You don't need to bring your iPad, or if you do need to bring your iPad, there's power on there. And then there's Wi-Fi if your husband needs to work or if you need to work. And what I think, meals on board is always something important. These 4 things can create a quick template. You can find all the information. Seatguru.com has all the information. You can find exactly what type of airplane just by typing the flight number in the airline. On the data travel, it's going to bring you exactly what the layout of the airplane is and all the amenities on board. You can find that on the airline app as well. Your client sends their confirmation number. You just scroll to the app, find all the pieces of information that they're most likely not going to look at, and you just send it back to them in a timely manner, either through email or WhatsApp or text, however you normally communicate with your clients. And that's the educate part of it. I mean, other things, I mean, down to layover, you know, they're connecting in, you know, Chicago, and, you know, they're from their itinerary, you could see they're arriving in Terminal 1 and they depart Terminal 3. Well, a quick Google Chicago airport map will bring up a bunch of image. I screenshot those, I circle Terminal 1, I circle Terminal 3, and I say, you go from here, you send it here, I send that to them. It seems like nothing, right? But in their mind, when they see it, first, they always know you're looking, they always know you're there. And what that does is that now, as an advisor helping someone with air, you're positioning yourself alongside your traveler, right? You're not in front of them. You're not duking out for who's going to book the air and who's going to find the cheapest fare. Because if that's what you're trying to do, they're going to win, because they're going to have way more time than you do for the most part. And they're always going to find the cheapest, right? So the positioning you want is, you don't want to be in front of them. You want to be next to them. You want to make sure that they know that you're a team, that you're next to them, and you're going to tackle stuff together. And that you may not know all the information, but when it comes to looking for it or helping them or just managing the energy when something happens, you're going to be there. And that has tremendous value. I mean, my whole business, if you ask any of my clients why they stay with me, they'll say it's peace of mind, right? That's really all it comes down to. Just knowing that there's help if I need to. And most of them are self-sufficient and they're travelers and they can do, but sometimes, you know, in a crisis, then it's good to, you know, to have some help. And as an advisor, you could do all these things also to prep yourself so that you're not caught off guard last minute with somebody calling you with a flight being canceled, right? So you can prep a lot of these things ahead of time so that you also can be prepared if you need to help a client. So the educate piece is a good one, because if client knows what's happening and what's coming down, they're way more likely to react in a much better way. So there's all kinds of things, you know, timeline you get to the airport. Again, the airline app usually give you that when you check in the client. The airline have that information already. You do it once, template it, and just reuse it and keep sending it. And again, it just reinforces the fact that you're with the client at every step of the way, or do the steps that you want to commit to. You don't have to be there every step of the way, but whatever you want to commit to, you can be there. And the level 2, if you educate and communicate, that is the sweet spot. That is where the airlines falter constantly, right? If you can master that, and it's not even about mastering, it's just about having the information and passing it along to your client for the most part. And as you keep doing that, sometimes you'll learn a few things or you'll gain experience a little more, because the more you do, the more you learn. But at the end of the day, it's just passing on and communicating to your client. Incoming flight, for example, like the one thing that's super popular with me is, like, I use an app called Flighty, Flighty. And the airline app does it as well. I like Flighty because I can put all my clients' flight on there. It's always going to tell me where the plane is coming from. So if I have a client that leaves at 6 in the morning, again, the example in Seattle to Orlando, then I could look the night before and I could see that the flight is already taken off from wherever it's coming from, and it's going to land in Seattle on time. And I could look at it and I could send a quick message to my clients like, listen, looks like your plane's going to be on the ground shortly. So chances are tomorrow morning, everything should be smooth. And then they go, oh, wow. So then they get to the airport and they already have an extra piece of information. Same thing if you look at the weather. and you can use the weather app that you use for every day. You don't need anything special. I use an app called Climb, CLIME, and it's visual, right? I mean, if you want a visual, FlightAware has a map that's called Misery. It's called the Misery map. And at a quick glance, you can see the whole United States, and you can see where the problems are, right? Where there are delays and cancellations. And if you know where your clients are connect from and to, then you can try to anticipate. You don't have to figure out what to do, but you can just highlight to your clients sometime and communicate, listen, it looks like it's going to be a little dicey in Houston, but you know what? Good thing we have 3.5 hour layover. We'll monitor the flight. You either do it, you set them up with alerts so that they get the update. And then once they know that the flight's delayed and the delays are compounding or something happened, then just because they know, then they're way more prepared to attack it. And if you're alongside them, again, helping them to through that, to ask questions, get reassurance or something, then that's going to be gold for them. And that is the sweet spot. Like if you can just communicate, like it's unbelievable what it would do when the client know that you're with them and you're just monitoring what they do. So we're gonna go here. And then again, the benefit is that for you, you're gonna earn your fee. If you want to monetize it, and you should, then you're definitely gonna earn your fees for doing most of this work. And for the client, it's just unbelievable peace of mind. And once you start doing it, like you're not going to want to stop, and your client are not going to want you to stop doing it either. So one caveat I will say, just be careful how deep you go, because sometimes it create expectations, and the goal is not to create lazy travelers, right? You want to keep your travelers self-sufficient so that if you're not there, they can still keep moving, but you can still help them and guide them along the way and offer them support as you go along. So level one we've looked at. So if you guide and educate and support and communicate. So here, again, that's same. Oh, and I was missing a slide here. Anyway, all good. And then the third piece is monetize. I mean, you may already do fees, you may not. This is not about fees today, but if you're, you can create a new stream of income doing something like that, or you can increase the stream of income that you're already doing with your current client. And I mean, you could charge $50 and you can itemize 5 things you're going to do for them and charge them $50. And that's a really good way to start if you're just dabbing into it. It's a very easy thing for somebody to see what you're going to do. They see the dollar amount. You're comfortable with what you're going to do, with what you're going to charge, and it's probably going to propel you to actually ask for a fee because you know what you're going to do. The clients know what to expect, and it's a really good way to start. And then you can increase from there and say, you know what, now I'm going to charge $100. Now I'm going to do these 10 things because I'm way comfortable with the first 5. It's an evolution, right? You can add to it at your own pace. You don't need to do it all from the get-go, but you can just keep adding as you go along. And these are very tangible things, right? You say, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, and I'm going to charge you X amount of money. Everybody understands that. It's kind of a very basic way of getting into it. The goal is where you get to a place where you can articulate perceived value. Perceived value is the value from your client's eyes, not what you think is valuable or not valuable in many cases. It's what the client thinks is value. And for the same reason, as because you do something so often and it takes you less time, doesn't mean you should charge less money for them or no money at all, because the end value for the client is still the same and always is the same. If you say, I hear that all the time, like I book X product and I don't charge a fee because it pays me a commission and it's super easy to do. Well, great. But you know what? You're going to have some hurdles, and the client's still getting a service. They still don't have to do it. You're still adding and recommending certain things. So don't discount yourself because of what you perceive the time that you're spending on, but always be mindful of what the perceived value is from the client. And if your client are spending money on things like, if I pay $60 or $80 for a massage, but they go to the spa and they pay $150. If my oil change on my car, probably $60. Well, they have a supercar or a high-end car and it costs $500, right? So once you adapt your fees and your thinking to what they're accustomed to pay in their everyday life for services that they buy, then all of a sudden, like your fee can go higher, and it's irrelevant of what you're going to do, but all about the value you're going to deliver and how. And especially in this, we're talking about traveling. more peace of mind you can bring, the more value you can add, the more ease you can bring to their travel, the better, and the more money you're going to ask without any question, if anything. So be mindful about setting fees from a fearful place. You know, it's something that obviously come with time, but you got to start somewhere, and I definitely encourage you to do it. I always say to my clients, for example, first-time clients, I always offer them as like, listen, if you commit to be doing this, we'll do it when you get back home. If you can call me, don't message me, don't email me, but if you call me and you can tell me why you feel that for the fee you paid, I didn't deliver enough value, then I want to learn from that. And then I'll refund you 100% of your fee, no questions asked. Like, I don't have any qualms about that. I'm okay to take 100% of the risk. And I am really okay to take 100% of the risk. And most of the time when you say that, most clients will just buy in automatically because it's risk-free for them. And then it gives you a chance to display what you can do. And chances are they're never going to leave you. And that's how you'll build the long-term relationship. And that's how you're going to differentiate yourself from other people, from other advisors and other service providers that you compete with as well. The benefit for you as an advisor is now you have a little more control over your revenue, because that's fees and that's something that you can control, that you can increase, and nobody can take that away like commission perhaps could. And for the client, it's just trust. It's just massive. When they pay for something, when they pay for your service, you work for them, you show up, that you show that you're there with them alongside, and you have their back constantly. Like that's you know, for clients nowadays, like it's something that's really hard to come by in any service industry. So if you can manage to crack and earn some trust, you're never going to have to worry about how much you're going to charge for the service ever again, pretty much. So I'm going to go forward here. So here's the overview again. So if you level 1 guide, educate, monetize, and level 2, you support, you communicate, and you monetize. And in level 1, you do a bunch of tangible things that you're pretty much trading your time for money at this point. And there is a ceiling, unfortunately, of how much you will be able to charge doing that. And then once you get to level 2, then now you're into the intangible things, where you're like into value, into peace of mind, and you're into stress level and seamlessness and all that kind of stuff that can't really be measured, but once the clients have experienced that. And that's why it's important to get the client to experience what you're going to offer them, because intellectually in their mind, they go, yeah, I get what you're going to do. 5 things, itemized. Yeah, I get it. Often they'll be like, yeah, I already do all of that, but you know what? Maybe I'll give you a chance. And once you get them to travel with you and you get to support them, then it goes from here, and then it goes to emotion. And once they get that, and once they feel what it is like, then that's like you've pretty much won the game at that point. And now you're trading value for money, where again your ability to monetize it is pretty much exponential. And it's a really good place to be, when you never have to worry about asking for money and worrying about money. And then you get the types of clients as well that you know, that will appreciate tremendously what you do, and have become tremendously loyal in the long run. So in the end, we're trying to do is just transform air from a hassle to an experience. So we're just trying to switch the table, right? And we want to get the client to try, you know, what we have to offer. And you could test it on people if you don't feel up for it. I mean, you can just notice next time you travel yourself and see what you do for you, for your family, the things you go through, the things you look at, the things you pay attention to when you book your air, when you travel, when you get to the airport, when you get on a plane. There's all these little things that, again, they're second nature to you, probably because you've been doing this for so long. Then it's definitely something that, like I want to say, that's not something that most people would pay attention to. Even if they know to, they likely won't. So just, you know, that's the experience we want to create. And in the end, people don't really want cheap, they want easy. They end up on the internet most of the time for flights because that's easy, right? And to a client that looks online that's overwhelmed with information, the difference in between a $300 flight and a $400 flight, it's $100. And that's all they see. They don't see that one leaves at 5:30 in the morning and the one leaves at 9:30 in the morning. They don't see that one. They do, but they kind of ignore it. They don't realize that one connects to Denver in the winter and the other one doesn't. They don't understand that the other one is a 50-minute connection in Chicago and they have to go from Terminal 1 to Terminal 3, right? So that's why they end up there, and that's why they end up booking itineraries that are not optimal for them. And as a result, make it a little bit harder for you to deliver your service at time. And none of the stuff that we talked about today pretty much require you to have access to GDS. I mean, it is handy if you do, but it is definitely by no means necessary. And you can charge good fees and monetize and do really good service and add a ton of value without any of those specific skills and access to GDS. And you also don't need to be making the booking. Like I said, if you want to take it on and take it a step further and take some of the hassle away from your client, and you go online and you can do the booking for them, then you can definitely do that. But that's definitely not a prerequisite. And all you want to do is craft an experience for the flight to the same level to what you do in your own niche. It's not any different. It's something you already do, but for some reason we hear flight and then it just switch and it goes technical, complicated, hassle, pain, and all this stuff. And it really doesn't have to be. It can be, right? At time, I'm not going to lie, it's not always rosy, but it's definitely something that as you do going forward, and if you try it, then something that you're going to learn to embrace, and you're going to see the advantage of doing it. And perhaps you're going to want to do even more, or add somebody on your team that can do it if you have no interest in doing it. Just like we end up hiring accountants as entrepreneurs after a while because we've done it for so long and we just need to delegate it. And yeah, I can't stress it enough to emphasize that you're part of the team, that you're alongside and you're with them. And that in itself is a tremendous peace of mind for the client. And that's what gets you the relationship that's going to last forever. And one thing that's always clear with my clients too is the boundaries that I set is nobody's on a pedestal. Your time is as important as mine. My weekends, my nights, whatever, that's mine. And then my knowledge is equal to your money. So there's nobody on a pedestal here. That's how you build a relationship, and you will find that most people will respect that often, and that's how you get relationships that last forever, and you get clients that keeps coming back over and over and over again to you. So that's all I had to say for today. So thanks everyone for being here. I think in the offer I have something for you if you guys want to keep learning about this, and I'm going to keep sharing some of the information, some of the tools, some of the tips, some of the tricks that I do, screen share about exactly what I do. And so it's something you're more than welcome to join on, and we'll keep the learning going from there.
Great. Thank you so much, Larry. It was, I definitely learned a lot, had a lot of great ideas. You do have a lot of questions in the question and answers, but unfortunately don't have time for Q&A. So if there's any way you can pop into the question and answers on YouTube and answer some of the questions. They're kind of wondering how you're booking, what do you do when the airlines make changes, lots of other things that I think you can help out with. And then please, the webinar you're doing, make sure to either list it on the event calendar or put a link to it in the comments.
Yeah, it's just a broadcast. I broadcast once a week, sometimes twice a week, and it's just sharing as much as I have to help as many people as I can. So hopefully it's practical.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Larry. Sorry we don't have time for question and answers, everybody, but if you guys, Larry will be answering your questions in the comments. So let's go ahead. Next up,